I thought I'd share a few stories from my childhood, from when I was growing up on a farm. Um, we lived in an old farmhouse that was uninsulated, and just to give you an idea of how bad that is, like the other day, not too far from where I live, it was 27 below zero. It was only 10 below zero here. Obviously, I live in a house that's insulated now, but the house I grew up in, we just had a wood burning stove for uh, for heat, and there weren't any ducts for that heat to go through. So basically, our I guess what you'd call the family room, living room, had the stove in it. But on the real cold nights, what would happen is my dad would hang blankets over the doorways of the kitchen, and he would turn the oven on and just open the oven door, and then we'd all camp out on the floor of the kitchen for warmth and safety. Um, I suppose that saved my parents from having to deal with three little popsicle babies sleeping upstairs. Not popsicle, icicle babies. Anyway, that would be one fond memory that I have. Another one is that usually in the spring, at least one spring that I remember, our acreage would get overrun with rats. Now we had probably 2 to 3 dozen cats living in the barn, but my dad always fed them very well. And they always had a bag of food, big bag of food, like 50-pound bag of cat food, and like a big bag of milk replacer, which is what you feed bottle calves. You just mix it with water, and there you go, kind of like baby formula. Anyway, the cats had no interest in chasing the rats off, none whatsoever. So we just get completely overrun with rats. I mean, completely. I'm not talking like there's a couple here and there. There's like, you go into the granary, which was a building that the rats chose to inhabit, and you would just see rats scatter. I mean, it was awesome like that. Anyhow, a few did make their way into the house, and they were living with us, mostly in the basement. But there was a hole where the pipes, like the water pipes, came up from the basement to the kitchen sink, and so I know there were rats in the kitchen at least, and so that I'm sure they were throughout the entire house. So in the interest of protecting his family from the bubonic plague, my dad did set a few rat traps in the house, nowhere that the kids would get into, except for under the kitchen, of course. But we'd have had to have made it through like bottles and bottles of cleaning solution, on poisonous chemicals in order to get to the traps. So, if we were really motivated to get to the traps, we probably would have killed ourselves by drinking Lysol um, or Pine Sol before we even got caught. But anyway, we did catch at least one rat, I remember, under the kitchen sink. So, that was lucky. Um, Rats. Anyway, another story that I can recall is every family, a lot of families drink milk, and so did we. We typically got our milk from a neighbor down the road who milked a few cows. What my dad would do is take a bucket down there and just get a bucket full of milk, throw it in the refrigerator with a lid on it, and we'd basically just skim off the cream and pour milk into a pitcher and have at it. About 5 gallons a week. There were three little boys, and eventually, I think by the time my sister was born, we actually drank milk out of cartons. But that was the way we did milk back in the olden days. I'm not that old even, so I mean that's pretty awesome. Um, two more little fond memories for you. At least one more. Every spring, also, our basement would flood with about 18 inches of water when the frost in the ground would thaw out. It would just come through the cracks in the walls and the floors. The water would. And so being the industrious little boy that I was, I decided that I should put fish down there. So every spring I'd put fish in our basement, and they'd swim around for a few weeks until the water dried up. Bad for the fish. Good for them for a little while. They had a nice pond to swim in, but eventually it turned back for them. So here's to the fish. Um, then lastly, I'm trying to think of something else that would be fun to talk about. I could talk about how crazy my mom was, but we'll just wait on that one. You know, I think that might be enough for now. I might make another one of these videos recounting fond childhood memories from the farm, just because some of them are pretty crazy. A friend of mine, his wife, just absolutely loves me. Uh, she says predominantly because I'm the only person she knows that, using her words, grew up harder than she did. You know, because when I talk about how we had rats in the sink or under the sink, and we slept in the kitchen on cold nights, and I used to put fish in the basement, and you know, just all these crazy things. We got buckets of milk from the neighbor. You know, she just thinks that's pretty tough. But you know, it's those events in your life that kind of mold you and make you who you are, I guess. Um, yeah, not that it's really bad. I'm not complaining because you know I look back at it and I think it's all funny. Um, oh, here, one last thing that I wanted to talk about. You know how it's supper time and you're always like, "Yay, supper!" You know, what's mom and dad cooking? It smells good. It's meat. It's a roast in the oven. And then my dad, I don't know why, he would get experimental, but little kids sitting around the table just waiting for food, and you know, here he pulls a cow tongue out of the oven, or a beef heart. You know, same animal, just different parts. My daughter just turned the TV up about to 5,000 volume. Maybe you heard that. Anyway, I better let you go. Merry Christmas.